I grew up on a farm in the 30s in North Dakota, and it was during the Dust Bowl period, and it was hardly an area where the average people had much interest in art or had time to even think about it. And so as a little boy, I didn't have a background in classes of kindergarten or high school even, or in art. There wasn't such a thing as a program in art. But I just found myself loving to draw and copy little paintings. My mother was a school teacher originally, and she had a book on traditional Renaissance art. And it was in black and white, not like the glorious color books of nowadays, but maybe it influenced me because my work still tends a little towards brown and black. But anyway, those lovely big European paintings were thrilling to me, and I used to make little copies of them. And when I was about 5 years old, my dad bought me a watercolor set to pacify me because I'd fallen and fractured my shoulder. And so he couldn't really afford it, but he bought me this little $1 watercolor set. And then from there on, I started painting. I kept thinking if I could only go to college, and it was not really a tradition in our family. You know, I had 3 older brothers, and none of them had gotten to go to college. Fortunately, the times were getting a little better, and I didn't quite fit into the role of the average farm boy. I think that my brothers were doing much better at that, so then Dad thought maybe since I was the 4th one, he could spare another son and let him go off to college, and that's what happened. I got to go to Concordia College. My teacher was Cyrus Running, and he was a wonderfully sympathetic person, and he encouraged me to go on in art. And so I did. I kept taking classes. I majored in art. In that very small program, I think there were 2 teachers. He hired a younger assistant named Betty Strand, and she was good too. And so finally he recommended, when I graduated, to go down to the University of Iowa. And they had a wonderful fine arts department there. And so he recommended it, and I followed up on it, and I got my Master of Fine Arts in 1952. Then I was drafted into the Army in 54, 56, and I went to Germany. I was put into the position of the painting signs for the company, so they wanted me to paint old German lettering, which was kind of corny, but that's what I did. And then I came back, and I had particularly wanted to work in the area of intaglio printmaking, and we had a wonderful teacher there named Maurizio Luzansky, and he encouraged me to go on with printmaking, and it was like a special area where you almost had a Renaissance kind of training, because the media itself demands a lot of careful skills with drawing, and it's a slow medium, so it takes quite a while to do it. I went on to Belgium for 2 years, or a year and a half, and there I had a wonderful time because I loved the traditional Flemish artists and their whimsy and fantasy. Not so much artists like Memling, but more like Peter Bruegel, and that became a big influence for me. I was already intrigued by that direction in my work, and so I loved having the museums close by, and they gave me a studio, or arranged for a studio there in a private home, and I worked there and enjoyed the life there, and it was wonderful, and the tradition. And then I came back. I suppose the Fulbright gave me a certain glamour or prestige, because I got invited to come to the University of Colorado to take the place of a faculty member who was on leave, and Dorothy Eisenbach, and so I just loved it. I didn't know if I even wanted to go into teaching, and I found out it was so much fun, and they had a wonderful program for the artists. They gave you alternate days to teach and alternate days to work in your studio. So it worked out well, and you did have time if you were careful. And so I flourished in a sense. I loved it, and I enjoyed the teaching, and I was able to make a living. Otherwise, it's kind of hard for people in the arts to find the right area so they can make a living. So for something like 29 and a half years, I taught at the University of Colorado in Boulder and thoroughly enjoyed it, and retired in 1990. I came here in 1961 and I never regretted going into teaching after all. So now I retired in 1990, and I've been lucky because I built a studio. I had a studio built in my backyard. It's bigger than my house, and it's been wonderful. My father left me some money when he passed away in 1981, and my mother said, "You've always wanted your own studio. Why don't you use some of that and build a studio, because you'll be retiring." And the university provided us with studios, but once you retired, of course, you had to give it up. So I didn't have that problem of finding myself retired in no studio to work in. I moved in 1984, and I've been painting in here ever since. I think the show at the Walker Arts Center, suddenly, that's a very well-known institution, and I think it was a real honor. It happened to be at the right place at the right time, you know, because the painting I was doing then would never be chosen for a show at the Walker. And nowadays, they're very involved with the current world, and I think I was working in sort of a semi-impressionist style with landscapes. But it did happen, and it took place, and it was very successful, and even bought one of the paintings, and so I feel that was really a thrill for me. And it was just when I was leaving for the Army, so it kind of gave me something to think about while I was over there in Germany in the Army. I got a warning from one of my painting teachers. He said, "Well, it's a wonderful area, but I'm afraid that if you do get your PhD, you're going to be sort of stamped in that role, and from there on, as you go out into teaching, they'll hire you as an art historian and not as a painter, and you'll probably find yourself slipping away from the painting field." And I think he was right. So anyway, I thought, I don't want to give up my printmaking and my painting, so I never did write a thesis. And but anyway, I think Lazansky was a big inspiration for me, because he was quite well known at that time. He was a popular artist, and the fact that he supported me, encouraged me, and I'm sure he got me the Fulbright. He pulled the right strings or whatever, because you're in competition with artists in your age group from all over the United States, and then there's a committee who chooses. And I thought, well, if they think I'm good enough, I must not be too bad, you know. So I was happy to accept. So in a sense, it's it's almost like saying a prayer or something at times. When you do work, you feel like maybe it's impractical, but there's something in the way that it might communicate that could make it valuable, you know. And so I've always associated it with my feeling about God and about life. That somehow it's supportive, and it opens your eyes to daily things that you see. In my case, visual art. So I suppose I feel like it trains you to be looking at the world more, and I think it also makes you look for the positive things. For me, that's what I have faith in, is a joyous sort of love for life. And I mean, people sometimes see a morbid side in my work, because I feel like that has to be there too, a little touch of the macabre to make the positive side visible. You can see some of the negative now and then, or like life and death, and it's all there. But there's a road where you can look for the better side or the positive. I don't have any children or any family, so I mean my own family. So I suppose on a subconscious level, I'd like to work to carry on my presence somehow a little bit. You don't have children to do it, so maybe the work will, give some sense of my presence, so that I'm not totally dead. Anyway, that's about it, I guess.